can't believe I let you convince me to play this game with you, Shadow.
Whatever it takes to prove that I am the ultimate life form, Sonic.
Either way, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Not inviting yours first.
Let's fucking get this shit. Is that an AR-15 with a bump stock? That's illegal in a couple of states.
That's right, Sonic. You better know your guns.
You know I'm a real gamer, unlike you.
You don't know what you want, Sonic.
Dude, you fucking suck at your own game. What were you doing these past 10 years? Frozen in a cryogenic chamber?
Shut up. You know that's sensitive.
How do I switch to playing as Maria?
Don't you dare bring up that name to me.
Oh wait, she's dead.
I will end you.
Where the hell did you get a Gatling gun?
That's right, Sonic. Give in to your anger, Sonic. Yes, Sonic.
Fuck, that's bullshit.
I am your doom, Sonic.
What are you talking about?
I am your end.
What the fuck?
I am your maker, Sonic. Not you, me.
Man, fuck this game. I hate this shit. I fuck you too,
You wanna
Shadow.
fuck me, Sonic?
I hope all the Latinas get deported.
What did you say?
You heard me.
Say that one more time.
Fuck you, Shadow.
That's it. I'm coming for you now, Sonic. That's my goat right there. Look at that specimen. Look at his features right there.
Beautiful.
Man, call me terminally sped with how behind I am with these movie reviews. I apologize for my absence. I've been busy with life stuff. The things I've been working towards right now are going to eventually have a payoff. And soon you all shall see what I've been building towards. Not to sound like a cliche Saturday morning cartoon villain, but I have genuinely been busy with just a lot of productive stuff lately. Things I'm looking forward to sharing with all of you soon. But I know that's still no valid excuse to be this far behind with the movie review. Sonic and my Lord and Savior Shadow would be ashamed. Please forgive me, my lord. So after the underdog success of the first two Sonic movies, the second being the highest grossing video game movie adaptation ever, that is until an obscure Italian plumber man from some indie obscure video game franchise, something called Mario or something like that, came a knockin' the year after and just completely obliterated all previous video game movie adaptation records. I think I speak for every Sonic fan out there when I say how happy and proud I am of Jeff Fowler and his entire production team for turning the historical backlash of the original Sonic movie design and completely turning it around to become one of the most consistent video game adaptations in recent memory. Holy shit, time sure flies. It feels like just yesterday when the sequel came out and I did a video review for it. And with each installment, it just seems to be building upon the formula. With just the right amount of family fun time camp, stupid tism coded camp, and slick badass moments ripped straight from the games that have just gotten me more interested and more excited with each installment to see what is coming next. But oh man, that post-credit scene with the last one revealing Shadow the motherfucking Hedgehog. Dude, I haven't cheered and shouted that loud in the theater since like Avengers Endgame. And guess what? Despite everything you are seeing right now, I don't consider myself a big Sonic fan. I'm not even the biggest Sonic fan that I personally know. Sonic fans are some of the most passionate and batshit insane people that I've ever met. A part of me is saying that as the biggest compliment and the biggest insult. So now that the long anticipated threequel in this franchise has dropped down upon us mortals, does it live up to the hype and fulfilling all the diehard Shadow fanatics? And does it cater to the furry goth dreams out there? Or does it just spinball into straight up stupid territory? The answer to that will surprise you. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Sonic, along with his friends and family, discover an all-new foe, Shadow, a mysterious figure with powers unlike anything they have faced before. With their abilities outmatched, Team Sonic must seek out an unlikely alliance with an old enemy. First off, let me just say that I fucking called it. 3 years ago, I said Keanu Reeves was probably going to be a top contender for the voice of Shadow. And look and behold.
In 2077, what makes someone a criminal? Getting caught.
Cool to know when your predictions come true. Casting credit, Paramount. Now, when it comes to my history with Sonic the Hedgehog, I've already made that clear in my previous movie review for Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Go check it out. But due to this absolute Chad being the front poster boy this time, or at the very least taking up equal amount of space as Sonic on the poster art, I think it's time for me to make my history with the hot sauce looking motherfucker known. As far back as I can remember Sonic the Hedgehog from the early 3D games that I first played, I always remember seeing the main trio squad, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, always foiling with some unknown villain of the week in the 2D games and even some of the 3D games. That is until Shadow, who like Robotnik became a mainstay staple in his first introduction game. Now I may lose some street cred with the Sonic fandom out there, but I have never personally played through the Sonic Adventure games. The first 3D Sonic games I remember playing as a kid were the ones that were coming out right after Sonic Adventure, so from the early to mid 2000s. I think Sonic Heroes was the first 3D one I played. Couch co-op mode with my cousins, if I remember correctly. I just had the vague understanding of who Shadow was just based off game art promoted on the internet.
What the fuck? Is that Shadow's dick?
But around that time, because my cousin was a really big Sonic fan growing up also, there was this one particular game sitting on his shelf that I remember seeing the cover of, and I instantly gravitated towards it. And that game was... Yes, the original Shadow the Hedgehog game from 2005, when I was a mere child, was one of the first 3D Sonic games that I played. Yeah, I feel like the word iconic doesn't even begin to describe this game's intro. It slapped when I discovered it at 5 years old, and 20 years later, it still slaps just as hard. I will be playing this intro on my phone on full blast as my future offspring are coming into this world. You gotta introduce them to peek right out of the womb. Most kids whose parents didn't allow them to play violent video games, the concept of a somewhat family-friendly character design and art style sporting a gun and shooting guns was like the most thug gangster shit that a little stupid kid like myself would have ever imagined. This was before my parents allowed me to play games like Call of Duty or Halo. So this being the safe middle spot of punk and angst that was just riddled in early 2000s culture still, being accessible to me because it sported that big Sega logo, despite it also having the rated T for teen in the corner of the box art, somehow finessed my parents. Now this game was my official intro to Shadow the Hedgehog. And not to sound all sappy or melodramatic, this also may have been one of my first introductions to the concept of an anti-hero. The idea that as opposed to a bad guy who does cruel and bad things, getting actual motivational backstory to explain their wicked ways in a tale to redeem themselves, to then ultimately revert back to the good side, to then sacrifice themselves to save mankind? A 5-year-old isn't used to stories like this, especially not in video games. This was a lot for my little teeny tiny brain to process. I didn't care much about the majority of the plot, I just cared about the cool visuals. I just wanted to pew pew my cousins in 1v1 matches. But the one story element that I do remember being constantly hammered all over the intro and the cutscenes for this game were the ones with Maria, Shadow's biggest reason in doing the things that he do. The idea of a character wanting revenge for the death of a loved one, and even the concept of flashbacks may have also been introduced to me in this game. What the hell? So yeah, safe to say that this game and this particular character did play a big role in my interest in 3D Sonic games and just my overall understanding of storytelling in video games. And once I did play a good chunk of the 3D Sonic games, I just found myself appreciating and always getting excited to see Shadow come back time after time. He's just what every cringy boy that starts to turn to resenting the world aspires to be. Man, looking back, I really was quite a special kid growing up.
You're starting to remind me of me. An impressive cop.
So once it was revealed that Shadow would be the next movie's antagonist, it was quickly speculated amongst the fans that this movie was going to be retelling the story from Sonic Adventures 2, as that was the very first Sonic game to feature the Hot Topic Hedgehog. So even though I still haven't played the games, I am well aware of the character moments and the big important story beats that occur in both of these games, especially Sonic Adventure 2. And even I know how much of a big impact that game has on the Sonic fandom. And I would say those Sonic Adventure games have definitely had a big revitalization in the past few years, thanks to Snapcube's legendary dubbing of the two games. It has definitely helped in resparking a lot of love for them and cemented them in cultural significance, at least in terms of internet culture. So like I said before, each one of these movies have only been getting more faithful to the source material. With how much more whimsical the second movie cranked it up, I was expecting them to go even further with it here for the third installment. And to my not so surprised delight, this is without a doubt the most video game centric installment in this trilogy. The general tone and atmosphere just feels so much more like you're just watching video game cutscenes play out when it comes to the even more over-the-top performances and all the set pieces. Now, to those that aren't fans of the source material, this may definitely come off as very cartoony or corny, or to anyone that lacks the critical thinking skills to realize that this is all based off of a video game, so maybe it's okay for it to be a little goofy at times. So something that we really got only towards the end of the previous movie was the Team Sonic dynamic. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, the big three. Just like the games and shows, their entire dynamic of different personalities and traits clashing against each other is just always plain fun to watch. Thankfully, this time it's present from the very beginning of the movie. Sonic's cocky sarcasm, Tails' analytical inventionist brain, and Knuckles' meathead muscle persona makes for a balance that is just a treat. Ben Schwartz continues to deliver a version of Sonic that feels familiar in spirit, but gives him his own twist that differentiates him from the video game version of Sonic. Colleen O'Shaughnessy as Tails just nails it. I mean, no dip, she's been the actual voice of Tails in the video games for the past few years now. Even more hilarious and a bigger standout was Idris Elba as Knuckles. He was more stoic and serious for the runtime in the second movie for the most part, and it wasn't until the very end where he really started to get goofy mode due to his dumb rugged nature coming through. But here from the beginning, he goes full on Tism mode from the start, and I can appreciate that. Punch first, ask questions later mentality. It feels just right for the character, and yet they still managed to show glimpses of some slight competitive edge and rivalry between Sonic and Knuckles, and I'm glad they showed that here. They didn't have to include that since we already got their big fight in the last movie, but I'm glad they still have that present here. Now, I didn't bother to watch the Knuckles spin-off series on Paramount Plus. Didn't really look interesting to me. How funny would it have been if the Knuckles spin-off series contained just humongous context needed for us to further understand what's happening here in this movie? Like, imagine if the first vital information of Shadow was introduced in the Knuckles spin-off series on Paramount Plus. I would have definitely been disappointed in them for taking the Marvel Disney Plus series approach there. Something that this movie tackled also is the arc of Sonic getting accustomed with working together as a team instead of going solo mode, which his character has been used to for a majority of his life here on Earth. Anytime he does get his ass handed to him in this movie, it's because he goes off running on his own, fighting battles that are just way too much for one hedgehog to handle. And it's when Sonic acknowledges that he needs to be with his family in order to stand a chance for these new threats. And I think that's a good message to show for the kiddos out there, and a good reminder for our doomer society. Teamwork makes the dream work. I don't know if anybody noticed this also, but the CGI and just overall VFX on them have been greatly improved upon from the previous two movies. So much attention to detail in their fur effects, especially how it bounces light off and the reflection quality in their eyes. It's so minute that you won't even really think about it because it just looks that seamless. They all just look as good as ever blending in with live action. And I could also be wrong here, but I also noticed that the overall vibrance and saturation quality on them has been increased. Therefore, makes their colors pop out more than from the previous installment. It makes it look more like, well, a video game movie adaptation. And this goes for all of the CGI and effects in this movie, not just on the creature design. It's like there's been a clear budget increase. A far cry from one of the initial studios going bankrupt from the first movie because they basically had to redo Sonic's entire model, basically redoing the entire movie. And sweet lord, especially on the Goth King himself. Don't worry, we'll get to him in a bit. But before we get to him, just like the previous movies though, we are once again put through just a gauntlet of sitting through more fairly boring human characters. Now, the biggest issue that I've had with them so far in all of these movies, that they just took up way too much screen time with their own subplots. Now, the first movie had the issue of the human characters just not being able to keep up with Sonic's energy, excluding Jim Carrey. And the second movie just had the issue of spending a decent portion of time on Tom's girlfriend's sister wedding or some shit, if I remember, where it just had such a little impact on the actual Team Sonic storyline. It's just a complete detour from what most people came to these movies to see. All I remember is that the moments can be funny, sure, but for like all the wrong reasons. Thankfully, I would say the total number of bland or boring human characters this time have been heavily reduced in comparison to the previous movies, and the time spent on the not so interesting human characters this time are actually shared with Team Sonic. So it doesn't feel like a total waste of time when we're seeing the human characters. In terms of stakes, this is actually like the highest they've ever been, with an actual world-ending threat from Robotnik and his grandpappy. I would say this movie is even the closest we've seen to one of the main characters actually dying. Tom just getting doinked by Shadow to the verge of almost dying felt way more warranted in order for him to have a more prevalent role in the movie, because what they did was draw parallels between Sonic and Shadow. I'll touch more on this later. This is what I feel these human characters should have always been since the first movie, not solely as the awkward comedic relief, but remind us just how important these characters are to Sonic, because we care about Sonic, and if Sonic cares about them and clearly shows how much he cares about them, then we'll at least care about them even a little bit. Now, when it comes to this aspect, I feel like this movie would have brought it home even further if they actually did kill off Tom, and I think it would have pushed the narrative of drawing parallelisms between Sonic and Shadow even further. It would have just elevated it so much higher. But I guess killing off a recurring character would have been maybe too grim for a PG rating, I guess. Those are my thoughts. Alright, the last human character aspect that we need to touch on is Jim Carrey's continuous return as Robotnik, because he has been without a doubt the biggest saving grace in this franchise, just pushing it to new heights of comedy that just aren't necessary. Nobody told him to go this hard for this franchise, but I'm so grateful for him that he has. He is a national treasure. He's made it clear just how passionate he is about the franchise, and with how open-ended his send-off felt in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, it was uncertain for a bit of time whether or not he was going to return for at least one more movie. Jim mentioned that he would only come back if it was a script of gold, and even if that's just code for I need another paycheck, I'm still happy we got at least one more grand hurrah performance from him, even if that means we may have gotten a little bit too much of Jim Carrey this time. Yeah, getting him to play two different roles on screen at the same time was both awesome and maybe a bit overwhelming at times. Playing both Ivo and Gerald seems like a Hail Mary of a decision, but I won't lie when I say they both provided probably the biggest laughs for me in this movie. Now, even though I am aware of the importance of Gerald's character in Sonic Adventure 2, I don't exactly know what his actual personality was like. At least from what I recall, he seemed to be way more of like a serious, threatening presence. So if there were fans that wanted that more mature tone from him in this movie, I'm sure they would have just mentally checked out and just thought this was way too far, because he basically is just a duplicate version of Robotnik, who basically is just Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey. Just older, grumpier, with a little dash of bigotry thrown in there. Oh man, to me, he was just a riot. And they probably gave perhaps one of the biggest fourth wall breaks that I've seen in a movie in quite a while. Seeing Jim Carrey just have fun with himself, pause. Seeing Jim Carrey just have fun playing with himself, pause. But at the cost of having an even bigger threat in this movie that wasn't Shadow. I think it's subjective as to what each person is going to think going into this movie, but I can understand and support both arguments of it going too far and it being just a ton of fun. But who cares about that? Sonic Adventure 2 fanatics got to see their game story come to life. And by the grace of God, they fucking did it. They made Eggman piss on the moon.
How do you like that, Obama?
Oh yeah, and Gerald's death was pretty epic here as well. And the dance scene was just plain fun. It just was. Sorry, it's stupid, but I like it. Now, after the finale of this movie, if either of the Robotniks somehow come back from their fates by some miracle, I actually wouldn't mind that too much if they keep the vibes going. Now it is time for the moment you've all clicked on this video for. The very thing this movie's advertisement knew we were all here for. Not just any other edgy life form, the perfect edgy life form, Shadow. Legit everything you could have ever hoped for and what you know about this character is all here. His deep, sexy Keanu voice, chaos energy abilities, his quippy yet menacing one-liners, deep cut references to his appearances in the games, his iconic shadow gun, his existential dread rooted in deep pain and suffering. It's glorious. From the very first scene after the opening studio logos, it was clear that this movie was going to take everything involving his backstory seriously. The moment you just see Maria plucking away on a guitar, The Last of Us somber style, you just know, oh, okay, they know what they're doing. The brief glimpses we get of Shadow and Maria's developing relationship is the most this whole trilogy gets at tugging at your heartstring. The harsh cuts from their happy flashbacks to the grim present time of Shadow reminiscing is something that genuinely caught me off guard due to how mature it felt compared to every other serious moment in this whole trilogy. The biggest thing they attempted to do in this movie was to draw comparisons between Sonic and Shadow's life. On the way they were both brought up resulted in the way they are. Sonic surrounded by love, family, and support, while Shadow was brought up as an experiment, a battery even, just an object to be used for someone else's gain. The outcome of these two characters' lifestyles has been a pretty common trope, not just in storytelling, but in general human existence, making it sound like this movie was some deep philosophical journey for me. Hurts individuals look to hurt others. It's a vicious cycle, so to have Team Sonic break that cycle for Shadow is a lot more heavy-hitting and a lot more relatable in my opinion than just the outsider alien fitting right into Earth. Do not let the darkness consume you. Let the dwindling light within you continue to shine despite it. The light shines even though the star is gone. The Sonic fandom out there can call me an absolute pleb for just now discovering that that's perhaps the basis of why Maria named him Shadow. You can't have shadows without there being light. Sonic and Shadow represent the different outcomes our own environment shapes us into. The way the both of them turned out, they really are the yin and yang of the furry community. I think they succeeded stated in flying colors of how much of a hurt and suffering individual Shadow is at first. By the end of the movie, the whole arc of him acknowledging and focusing on the love that he has felt and is capable of receiving and giving, it's really satisfying, and it really makes it feel like he is the main character at some points. The amount of flashback Maria scenes felt just enough, and it didn't overstay its welcome to the point of it just feeling overblown and just bashed over the head. Now, I'd say I really only have one gripe with the whole Maria backstory, and I'd say it's more so of the movie's issue of being rated PG, and that is her death. It's fairly common knowledge for Shadow's love for both Latinas and guns. Both were clearly paid homage to here, which I think is vital for his character.
Shadow loves Latinas. That's another meme that we found a place for in the movie.
There's a meme that's what Shadow loves.
Shadow loves Latinas. Yeah.
Is that true?
It's true. You can Google it after we finish.
That's so funny.
Yep.
Finally, a deep analysis for his deep love for Latinas can finally be explored in hour-long YouTube video essays. The Hedgehog loves his guns too. I mean, come on. This was his intro in his first game. Excluding the big-ass Eggman piss laser, I guess showing actual lethal guns akin to real life would have just been way too much for a PG-rated movie. So they kind of just stuck with generic laser guns, kind of. They even changed the design of the pistol he rocks on his motorcycle. How dare they change the Shadow gun? Because once he starts going shooty mode against Sonic, all that comes out are just little electric bolts. No lethal rounds? Just pesky little shock bullets. Oh man, fine. But I'm sure you're asking, what does this have to do with Maria's death? Well, everything! I know full well in the game she just straight up gets shot. Like, with a lethal gun. This was originally from the early 2000s, back when things that were usually rated PG or rated E for everyone, back when movies and video games got away with a lot more violence, cursing, and innuendos. Tis was a different time indeed. And before watching it, I didn't know that it was actually PG rated still. I thought they were just straight up going PG-13. And I genuinely thought for a brief moment that they would actually shoot around, pun intended, Maria getting shot with a gun, like directly, whether by cutting away as the muzzle flash goes off or obscuring the impact in any way. But I guess that would have been only viable in, let's say, a PG-13 rated movie, which in my opinion I think would have been the right call to have that be way more of an impactful moment. The amount of anticipation I was seeing from the Sonic fandom upon seeing Shadow wield his iconic Shadow gun for a moment in the trailer, I think it made everyone believe for a moment that we were actually going to see a little girl get 360 no-scoped by a lethal round in this movie. I think the whole theater would have genuinely cheered if that actually happened, and I think that would have been very confusing for regular families with their kids who decided to go see a movie about the colorful bunch of talking animals. I understand why the studio went for a PG rating. Obviously it's more marketable and it could reach a wider range of audiences, i.e. families bringing their kids. But I think the Sonic fandom would have absolutely made up for the losses of there being less families going to see this if it was PG-13. Oh man, I keep getting sidetracked. Anyways, back to her death. She only ended up dying by getting caught in a barrel explosion from one of the soldiers missing his shots as they were aiming at them while they were escaping. And of course it was cut away once the explosion happened. But still, the way the shot compositions were and everything, when it went serious mode for that scene though, was still pretty impressive considering how much goofy bullshit is in this movie. Maybe a bit of tonal whiplash, honestly. But oh man. Basically, once they all go to space is, may I say, where this movie really started to pick up steam. The trailer gave vague hints, and of course those familiar with the game story were fully aware of seeing this coming. Doesn't mean it was any less awesome. The ultimate brawl between Super Sonic and Super Shadow. The entire fight traversing across space all the way down to Earth, across the different continents, and back up to the moon? Like, bruh. May I say the entire sequence of them being both in super form is quite literally peak of this entire trilogy. It's clear that this is definitely where most of the money and focus really went to. The visual effects and fight choreography is stellar and is probably the closest thing we'll ever get to an actual decent live action Dragon Ball Z fight scene. But once they finally joined forces in one of the greatest dap-ups in the history of cinema and live and learn queuing in at just the right time, dude, again, I'll clarify. I did not grow up with Sonic Adventure 2, and even I know how important these things are to the fan base. And even I found myself cheering to this shit. I don't know what it was, man. If not nostalgia, then what? What was it? Was it the tism? Was the tism flaring up? Probably, but considering how much this whole final act made me feel inside, I'll consider that an ultimate win. And with that, I'll close off with what I think and speculate with everything they showed in the post-credit scenes and what is to come next. Unfortunately, yet again, I got minorly spoiled online. I definitely got to keep reminding myself to stay off the fucking internet whenever it comes to big releases for highly anticipated movies, but I did get spoiled about Amy being in the post-credit scene. And it's not that it was any less awesome in my screening for the movie. I'm just genuinely surprised I still have a general good memory of the entire Sonic crew, even the more obscure characters that most people don't really talk about. But the bigger reaction from me was for sure the reveal of Metal Sonic, because from what I do know about him is that he meddles in time travel, and if time travel is going to be a concept for the next installment, I think Sonic fans know who and what are to come alongside that. Only time will tell if who we think will show up due to the meddling of time, Terminator style now that I really think about it, will indeed show up. But considering everything that Jeff Fowler has given to us now, I would not put it past him or his entire production team to keep pleasing the fans by getting real deep into the cut references. I think I may make the argument this is probably the best Sonic movie from this trilogy when it comes to adapting the source material and appealing to the fans for sure. Now, structurally as a movie though, as a whole, I think I may still have to hedge my vote towards the original one, since it did feel the most consistent throughout the entire movie. But this one did get the most audible reactions out of me. I think I'll have to give it to this one for giving me the good old roller coaster experience that absolute cinema guy always foretold. And a message to Jeff Fowler and just anyone that meddles in animation or visual effects: if you ever feel like your work or creation can ever be expanded upon, no matter if you believe anybody is going to like it or even watch it, I think Jeff's story is really an inspiration for animators out there. For anyone that does not know, Jeff Fowler, the director of all these movies so far, was the lead animator for the Shadow the Hedgehog video game cutscenes, which means he has technically been in development for this movie since before 2005, most likely. How poetic. The creator responsible for this went all out when given the opportunity to bring essentially his baby to the big screen 20 years later. Goes to show that you can really fly so high when you never give up on your passions. Feels good. I just think it's so neat. Thank you to all animators and VFX artists out there. Please keep creating. 7 out of 10, peak moment of the entire trilogy with the most fan-centric video game adaptation to date.
I just love Latinas, Sonic. What? Adios, amigo. Whoa, there he goes. All the way across the border. Adios!